So over the past year, we have seen strength in many of the US tech stocks, especially those to do with AI. What about the Singapore market? Are there stocks to actually focus on in the technology sector? Hey guys, Joey here, top tier MyZeal, trader in Philip Securities, and in this video, I'll be showing you just three Singapore tech stock that has been in my watch list for a while since last year, and we are starting to see some bullish price actions coming back. So can there be more upside? What are some of the new targets that we have drawn? So if you want to know what these three Singapore tech stocks are that can potentially offer another 20 to 30% upside as we move further into 2024, right? And more importantly, how do you actually position yourselves in them to ride the upside? Make sure you watch this video all the way to the end and just give me a like, hit the subscribe button as well. That would really help out the channel, and thank you so much for doing that. So let's move on to the very first stock of ShevU. Let's go. So the first Singapore tech stock like ShevU will be this company called Franken, right? One of my favorite stock, and we have covered this stock since last year. We have found a bottom around that 80 cents since like July, August last year. We kind of touched and rebounded from this support level about 3 times we touched, came back up. But the key here was that we were actually consolidating, I would say, below the $1 to 120 resistance level for Franken, right? So you can see 120 was a very firm resistance. We touched a couple of times. Prices went down again, we touched, we sold off, but somewhere around like November last year when we started to see strength in many of the US tech stocks when there were talks about rate cuts, Franken actually broke this $1.20 resistance level. So that's where there were some really good signs of more upside momentum happening, all right? And of course, the trend has actually started to turn up by then already, all right? So upside targets were drawn to about 140 to 145, and it seems like we have already hit our upside targets, and there was some profit taking and some consolidation. Over here, you can see for the past 2 months, swing up, down, all right? That's what pretty much happened over the past 2 months, right? But over the past week, what happens was we actually attempted to break this resistance at about 145. It used to be 140, but 145 came out as a little bit of a temporary resistance level. You can see that it kind of like coincides with what we saw about 2 years back was a support level. We broke down this support. Of course, it sold down even more in a downtrend then. All right, but recently, all right, over the past week, we actually attempted to break this $1.45 resistance level while we are still in an uptrend, right? So just looking at the trend indicators, we can look at what we call the 100 days moving average, right? This red line, all right, and this blue line, you can see that since about November, all right, just about 3 months back, we saw the 100 days moving average line crossing up above the 200 days moving average. So it was a bit of a downtrend, right? Since beginning of 2022, when there were talks about rate hikes, the US tech sector sold off, Franken sold off as well. So it was a bit of a downtrend then until recently, just 3 months back, it has turned into what we call an uptrend. And that's where you want to start opening your eyes and positioning yourself in stocks like this, but not just anywhere, but at certain hot zones whereby you have a higher reward to risk ratio, whereby you get more upside by entering at certain zones. All right. And if you want to find out a little bit more like the entire strategy and all that, you can attend one of those free webinars. I'll just place the link below this video. But in this video, I'll not talk too much about the entire strategy. All right, I'll just kind of like do this analysis live and give it to you, and maybe we'll look at the system that I have as well to see what it says, whereby we had a couple of bullish entry signals that have came out as well. All right, so attend one of those free webinars to find out a little bit more. The link is right below this video. So let me just talk about Franken again. You can see that, as I mentioned, we have turned into an uptrend since about 3-4 months back in October, November, around here, whereby we saw the moving averages, the longer term moving averages turning up, right? So red above the blue, 100 days above the 200 days moving average. That's the sign and key, as I mentioned, was we broke the $1.20 resistance level after that happened, right? After the trend turned up. So that's key, right? That's where we started to push higher. We consolidated, and now it seems like we are pushing higher after breaking the 145 to 140. So we might kind of like push a little bit higher up. We might see a bit of profit taking maybe near the 170. 170 would be the next resistance level right over here. You can see that about 2 years back, we saw a couple of profit taking, sold off, rebounded up, sold back down. So 170, based on the past prices 2 years back, could be a potential resistance level whereby we might see some profit taking coming back again. So if you want to take some profit near like 170, 165 and above, I think that would be okay as well, because that's where we might see a bit of a selling. It might consolidate again, for a while, maybe a month or two, and it might actually, trade lower, all right, consolidating a while before attempting to break that 170. And when that happens, great, right? You can see that we are pretty much heading back to this key psychological level, right? And that would be the $2. $2 is a very key psychological resistance level. You can see that was in 2 years back, end of 2021, we broke the $2, and that was where there was some signs of weakness. The downtrend started, we just couldn't get above 2. So now we might be making our way towards the $2 next, after the $1.70 resistance level. All right, so this is Franken, right? So let me just change this red line. I mean, since that we have broken this 145, we can change this red line resistance to what we call a support level. So I can put the support maybe at about 140, just to give it a little bit of leeway. I think 140, 145, also where the 20 days moving average. Can you see that this 20 days moving average line, all right, it was pointing up as we broke the 120, the green line was pointing up, but we started to flatten out a little bit, because as I mentioned, we were consolidating below the 145 resistance, right? So it's like flattening out, and right now you can see that the green line, the short-term 20 days moving average, is starting to point up, right? Starting to point up, price above it, so it looks good in the short term. The longer term uptrend, as mentioned, yes, already turned into an uptrend since 3 months back, all right? So short term, it looks good as well. So I think anything above that 140 to 145, let me just draw some upside targets right over here, all the way to about 170, as I mentioned. That is where some selling can happen again, right? So this is Franken. It looks quite good. We might still be in a recovery reversal phase as long as we stay above those support levels I talked about, 140, maybe 145. That's where there's still a lot of upside momentum. Buyers can continue to come back to push prices higher day by day, week by week, until it hits a resistance, and that's where you could lock in some profits as well. All right, so that is Franken. Let's take a look at what it says on my 1GT. So I have a system, or what we call a web-based software, that not only alerts us to counters like this, but also guides us on entry and exit. So let's take a look at this software right now to see what it says, if we have any signals that have came out over the past few weeks. Alright, so this is Franken on my 1GT system, what we call a web-based software, whereby you can simply type the name of any stocks and in just a few seconds get a quick opinion based on the bullish or maybe even bearish signals that you are seeing on your stock. Alright, so I will not go too far, but you can see that since last year in May, Franken was pretty much still in a bit of a downtrend. It was heading lower. We got a couple of bearish signals. So this red arrow pointing down, you can see started to push lower, got an exit, another red arrow went down a little bit, another red arrow bearish signal on July, went down. But somewhere around August, right, that was where we started to see some signs of the trend turning up, right? There was some bullish signal that came back. You see somewhere around 15 August, push up, consolidated. But as we consolidated, right, below that 120 level, there were a couple of bullish signals coming out as well. All right, and it's just moved a little bit sideways. That was one we had in November. Remember November when there were talks about rate cuts in 2024 this year, right? That is where the US tech sector really rallied. So of course, for Franken being the tech sector in the Singapore market, it rallied as well after this signal came out on the 8th of November. It went up for like about 1-2 months, got an exit, consolidated, as I mentioned, below the 145, 140 level. And let's just zoom into where we are right now. You can see that just last week on the 16th of February, we got a new bullish signal. All right, this right over here, you can see this is a green arrow pointing up. So it started to push up. Right now, it seems like we have pushed even higher. All right, and there are no exits yet from this bullish signal. So what would be an exit? Well, an exit would be something like this white arrow. You can see this white arrow is pointing down, so it's an exit from the previous bullish signal that we got in November, right? So when you see an exit signal, it just shows that there are some selling pressure coming back. It might happen near that 170. As I mentioned, that is a key resistance. So if it stays, hits to 170, we see a exit signal. It could potentially, lead to some selling or some profit taking. It could also guide you to get out, all right, until maybe you see a new bullish signal coming back. All right, so that's an exit signal. So you can see that right now we got this bullish entry signal. There is no exit like this thing over here, so you might start to push a bit higher. 170, maybe it break 170, might push to $2. No idea when the exit signal can come out, but once it comes out, it could guide us to also get out as well. All right, so this is Franken. All right, we had a bullish signal, all right, just last week on the 16th of Feb on the 1GT system on this web-based software that I have. All right, and there are no exits, so let's see how far they can go. And if you want to find out a little bit more, guys, on this system or how to have a software like this, whereby you can simply type the name of any stocks in it and get a quick opinion in a matter of seconds, right? You can attend all those free webinars. All right, I'll just place the link below. Click on it to register for it. All right, and that's where I will not only share with you like this software, but also what happens or the strategy or the framework behind this software. So it kind of like makes sense rather than just using the software blindly. All right, you kind of like I'll share with you guys a little bit more on how it works. All right, the strategy behind, and you can learn a little bit more how to actually position yourselves in winning stocks like this. All right, so let's move on to the second Singapore tech stock like ShevU. Let's go. So guys, if you like this video and you got some value so far, I would appreciate you can give me a like. All right, hit the like button and of course smash the subscribe button as well. That will really help out the channel. Hit the follow button so that you will not miss out on videos like this. All right, so let's move on to the second Singapore tech stock like ShevU, and this stock is none other than UMS, right? UMS that have been in my watch list since last year as well. You can see we are currently trading at about $1.47. So I've covered this stock I think a few months back on my YouTube video. It was somewhere I think below the 140 level. All right, so 140 you can see was a very key resistance level since 2 years back. We touched, we sold off a couple of times. We were just below that 135 to 140 level right over here, and we couldn't get above that 140. all right, but what happens was over the past week, all right, we managed to break above this 140 resistance level. All right, and breaking above it is a good thing, but we want to stay above it as well. And you can see that over the past week, after breaking above, we are still staying above the 140 level. So this resistance, you can see that I turn it from a red line, all right, was a resistance level, we broke above it, but now I put it as a green line because now that would be a new support level. So the support level used to be lower. In fact, it used to be like about the 120 level. You can see right over here over the past 2-3 months, right, since September, October, we were actually swinging up and down, up, down, until, right, so it was just consolidating sideways until we broke the 140. Does it make sense, right? So 120 to 140, now we broke 140. Upside could be maybe all the way to maybe about $1.55. So let me just draw some upside targets. I would say that anything above that 140, upside targets can be to around $1.55, right? Why do I say that? Well, we can look at what we call the past prices, right? 2 years back, we were right over here at about $1.55. A couple of touches for like a month, more than a month of it touching it. Sellers came back and just pushed prices down 155 to maybe 160. I think that's potentially where some selling pressure can come back again. So we might just consolidate below 155 to 160 for a while, and even attempt to break that. And when we break that 155 to 160, I think that's a good thing. We may see targets being revised when we all the way up to 170, and that's what we call a new multi-year high. It could trigger a lot of momentum in this stock, because this stock, as I mentioned previously, we look at what we call the longer term moving average, right? The 100 days, the red line and the blue line. So UMS, same thing like Franken, it has already turned into what we call an uptrend, right over here since like October last year when we covered this stock. It's not just last week or last month, it's like since I would say October last year. So for about like 4 months, 5 months, right, we have returned an uptrend. We are consolidating higher, pushing higher, and then consolidating again, and that's what we call a healthy uptrend. All right, so this is UMS. It looks good. If we continue to consolidate above this 140 new higher support, that's a good thing. We can still continue to maybe push higher. All right, so let's take a look at what it says on my 1GT software. All right, and to see if there are any bullish signals that have came out recently, just like what we saw for Franken. Okay, UMS on my 1GT system, this web-based software whereby you can simply type the name of any stocks like what we did for Franken. All right, so you can see that for UMS, it was pretty, I would say, but let's not go too far. We somewhere like last year, January 2023, we got a bullish signal, was a bit of an uptrend, went up, but then bearish signals came out, right, in the February, just last year, February 2023, sold off. We got an exit, came back a bit, and then another bearish signal started to sell off again. So it was a bit of a downtrend, I would say, since like beginning of 2023, all right, until maybe somewhere around like July, right? So July, you can see that the red bar, so red is a bit of a downtrend, so you can see the red bar turned to green around June to July, and we started to see bullish signals coming back. This green arrow pointing up, you can see started to push higher, got exit, another bullish signal started to push higher, a couple of profit taking. You can see right over here, we got a bearish signal start to consolidate. So when we see like a bearish signal or some exits, that would mean some maybe sideways consolidation or some selling happening near like a resistance level. So that would be like the 140 resistance I mentioned, right? We were just kind of like consolidating below that resistance, all right? So let's just zoom into where we are right now. So over the past like 1-2 months, a couple of bullish signals coming back, but let's just zoom into most recently right over here on the 14th of February. So this last week, right? Just last week before the move, before it broke the 140, finally we got this bullish signal, right? This green arrow pointing up is a bullish entry signal, 14th of February, and it just started to move up, right? Breaking the 140, now it's about 147, and maybe slightly higher, all right? So yeah, this is a recent bullish signal. There are no exits yet, so as I say, we might head towards the 155 to 160, we might consolidate a little bit below it, all right? If we do see an exit, that it could guide us to get out as well, all right? But so far, I think the trend is still up based on this bar is green in color. There are no exits, so I think it still looks pretty awesome, right? So this is UMS, quite a good stock to consider to put in your watch list for potentially more upside as long as we stay above the new 140 support level. The third Singapore tech stock I'll ShevU would be this company called Valuetronics, trading at about 0.595 now, all right? So you can see that for Valuetronics, since last year, in fact 2 years back, we were pretty much consolidating sideways right over here below this very key resistance level at that 0.55, the 55 cents resistance, about 1, 2, 3, 4 times we touch it and we just sold off. So it's turned into what we call a downtrend since beginning of 2022 when the US tech sector sold off as well, like Franken and UMS. It has also sold off, and we will just kind of like consolidating below 55 cents until, all right, there were some signs of the trend starting to turn up just by looking at what we call the moving averages, right? You can see that the 100 days moving average line, the red line, has gone above the blue line, right? So it has turned into an uptrend, I would say, in the longer term, since somewhere around like September, October, we started to see signs of the two longer term moving averages pointing up. But the key is that we need to break this 55 cents level, which actually happened in November, right? Right over here when it talks about rate cuts. In 2024, it broke the 55 cents level. Many of the tech stocks broke a certain resistance as well, like UMS and Franken. And same thing, right? Valuetronics broke it, all right, and we started to push higher. And over the past like 1 month or so, you can see that this green line, all right, this 20 days moving average, it starts to move sideways. So we are kind of like consolidating right now in the short term, maybe from 0.58 to that 0.65, right? 0.65 would be the next resistance level over here, all right, 0.65. So I think upside targets, maybe we could draw it from 0.5859 all the way to around that 0.65 level, right? So I think as long as we stay above, you can see that buyers are starting to come back up near that 59 cents, 58 cents. This is quite a good bullish candle whereby we got a long lower shadow, something like a hammer, whereby it sold off, buyers came back and pushed prices up, and it closed somewhere at the high at the day end. So it just shows that buyers are kind of like defending this, support 58 to 59. We stay above, it still looks good, but we might just be moving sideways for now in the short term until we break that 0.65 resistance level. So that's it, guys. These are pretty much the 3 Singapore tech stock that is in my watch list right now. It has been in my watch list since last year, but seems like we are starting to see some bullish price action. So you can also consider putting them in your watch list for potentially more upside by another 20 to 30% as we move further into 2024. Right. So if you like this video, guys, go ahead to give me a like, smash the subscribe button or the follow button as well, so that you will not miss out on videos like this, and it will definitely help out the channel. All right. And thank you so much for doing this. So as I mentioned, right, if you want to find out a little bit more on like the strategy or the framework behind, you can attend one of those free webinars. I'll just place the link right below. Attend one of those free webinars to find out a little bit more. All right, or if you want to have access to like a software whereby you can simply type the name of any stocks and get a quick opinion based on what you see on the chart, based on the bullish or maybe bearish signals, right? Can attend this free webinar. I'll share with you a little bit more, all right, after explaining the strategy or the framework first. All right, so Joey here. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.